All right. For our next session, we will invite Maprang back to the stage, as well as Koji Ron Obara. Koji was recognized as Japan's fastest safety car driver. And he has experience racing on tracks such as the Nürburgring in Japan. In Germany. Anyone know the Nürburgring? Nürburgring? Yeah, it's the longest track in the world. Very, very hardest track. We have a real racing driver who's been on that track. Give him a round of applause, guys. Give him a round of applause. All right, excellent. So, yes, I'm going to be next. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
All right.
I am the most fastest safety car driver. Koji Obara. Nickname is Long. Thank you.
All right, excellent,
Uh,
excellent.
I've been invited as a greatest speaker today. Normally, I am immersed in the extreme world of the racetrack, where every turns of a second counts. But today, I've been really looking forward to talking with you all about the future of speed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Very,
you.
very great. I love it. I love it. Awesome. All right. So we're going to start. I'm going to ask them questions back and forth, okay? And they'll give their answers. So, Maprang, most people think motorsport is about speed, right? You're saying the real competition happens somewhere else entirely. Where is that?
Okay, yeah, it's also about speed for sure. But actually, it's a kind of race that depends on so many other factors prior to the racing season, if you know about it. And especially we have some Formula One fans here. I'm sure that if you have like watched the game for a long time, you know that it's not quite a fair sport, especially at that level. There's a lot of heavy investment involved, and usually at that level, like Formula One, it's all about the capital. Who has the more capital? But then there's also some other interesting cases, like for example, in the local motorsport of Japan, that usually the determining factors for winning comes from somewhere else. So yeah, to Lee's question earlier, the real determining factor, as far as I can see, and as far as I have been told also by some of the insiders in the industry, depends actually on how creatively you can interpret what the regulations really say in order to come up with the design that within the legal terms, within the regulations, but so smart in an engineering type of way that you actually get the effect, the aerodynamics effect that is not at all intended by the regulations. And also, I think it's a really challenging and really fascinating problem. That's the reason why I founded this company, Checkmate AI. And we regulatory technology right now, we hope to actually help motorsport in other aspects as well. But this is the first factor. This is the first problem, the first challenge that we'll look at and we try to tackle because it's not all about speed. The race actually really happens before the actual race.
Yeah, it sounds like that, especially in something like Formula One, you have all these rules, a big rule book, extremely, thick, that people try to manipulate and find loopholes for. And it sounds like your company helps them do just that, right?
Yeah, actually, that's the pitch, that's the narrative I sell to everybody that I ever meet. But since this is my own event, I'll be really honest. I'll tell you guys the truth. Right now, that narrative is far too simple. But it's an easy to sell narrative because if I ever get to talk to any motorsport fans, that's also something that they kind of know that all the teams are trying the very best they can to find the loopholes within the regulation to creatively interpret the rules in certain ways that they can argue later with the regulatory body that they actually play within the rules, the boundaries, the margin of errors. In the world of motorsport, it's called tolerance. Some the idea that's really interesting about tolerance in the world of motorsport, tolerance stack, is when you actually combine all the different measurement. So each measurement has some margin of error, right? And once you combine all the margin of errors, you line them up so perfectly, you'll be able to oftentimes come up with the kind of design that actually give you like extra advantage that the kind of extra advantage that once you like break all the components, all the different rules down, you can argue that you don't really break any rules. I don't know if that explanation kind of makes sense. So you stacked all the margin of errors from every measurement, the tolerance stack that can actually allows you to creatively come up with the design that gives the kind of aerodynamic effect that's so not intended by the regulators at all. So yeah, hopefully that's like a little bit of like interesting information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Koji-san, you spent 20 years leading the fastest cars in Japan at speed. From a position no engineer, no team principal, and no race director occupies in quite the same way. What does race day actually feel like from where you sit?
For 30 years, my office has been like between the track walls, leading the fastest car in Japan. From where I sit, race day is not about date. It's about pure energy and tension. 日本語でセーフティーカーの中にいると、後方にいる全マシンのドライバーの殺気や、ピット全体の焦燥感がエンジニアの無線越しではなく、もう空気の振動でダイレクトに伝わってきます。天候が変わる瞬間、路面のグリップが変わる瞬間、データが弾き出す前に、私の体がそれを察知しています。それが僕の視点です。
When you're in the safety car, you can feel all the drivers behind you, their intensity, the pit, the sense of frustration, anxiety that is coming from the pit. And you feel that not beyond the intercoms from the engineers, but you directly feel it in the shape of how the air vibrates. When the weather changes, when the grip on the road changes, my body feels the change even before the data can come up. That is my point of view.
Excellent. Wow, that's really interesting. And he's leading all these the fastest drivers in the world. He literally feels their tension behind them. It's insane. I can only imagine what they would feel like. All right, Matt Prang. This question is for you. I want you to help us understand, what gray zone actually is, not in technical terms, but in human terms, so everyone can understand. Okay. And there's one point that I really want to push on is the problem really that teams can't find gray zones, or is there something keeping them from doing that? Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, right, in the previous question, and that I lie a little. I've been lying the whole time because it's the easiest narrative to sell, and it's something that some motorsport fans will already know about, that the race actually begins before the race. It's about creatively finding the loopholes within the regulations, but that's not actually what we're trying really to deliver, even though our current version is doing exactly that. And that is only because it's the nature of this industry, the nature of motorsports. It's the kind of industry where once you enter, you tend to stay for a long, long time. And another fact about this industry when it comes to the regulations, the rule book has never really been like rewritten from scratch. Usually it just like update patches from like the previous version. So the two facts combine, right? When you enter the sport early and you stay for a long time, and the competitive nature of the sport where it forces you to always look for like engineering loopholes to better your design, you end up becoming someone who actually has a lot of discoveries, has figured out a lot of ambiguities and pretty much know them like by heart. And that's the thing that I actually found out as I was working on the validation phase with our advisor, an engineer from a GT500 team, Super GT. So that's not what we're trying to deliver in the long run. Right now, we're just trying to surface the ambiguities to make it like faster, to actually make this whole process like more structure, more streamlined, make it faster for all the race teams at this speed and scale for the first time. But the real problem is actually when you know of the ambiguities of the loopholes, can you actually afford within like combining all the factors given your team's current situation, can you actually afford to exploit those ambiguities? That is actually the real problem, and that is actually what we are trying to solve, what we are trying to deliver. I'll give you some example for Super GT, since we figuring out the solution for Super GT right now. For example, there's some ambiguity known about success weight. So I'll explain that really briefly, and maybe I'm so scared because we have a GT500 driver here. Maybe I mess up. So the game of Super GT, in case like a lot of you are not familiar with it, is that every time like the team like wins the round, you don't only accumulate the points, you also accumulate the weights that will be put onto your cars to actually make your cars go slower. And why do they do such a thing? Like, why do they actually punish the winning team? It's only because they want to make the race more fun for the audience to watch. They want to avoid the kind of problem that Formula One has been having for a while. The problem that like whoever is the richest gets on the podium every single race, right? Super GT doesn't do such a thing. Super GT has a different game mechanism entirely to ensure that the race is really equal. The race is more fun to watch. So in that case, all the engineers of all the teams, they actually know about this. And they're smart enough, so smart that sometimes the right decision to actually make sure that you win the entire season is to deliberately finish worse than they could have in order to avoid getting the weights put onto your cars. The last two races of the season, though, they'll start taking the weights off of your car. The penultimate round, they take half the weights off, and then the last round, they take all the weights off entirely, right? So something like that is actually well known to everyone in the world of Super GT. This ambiguity that's already known can you actually exploit it though? That's the thing. Because if you deliberately exploit it and you exploit it in such a way that is so obvious, it could create a whole lot of different other problems. For example, sponsorship management, right? The how would your sponsors actually feel about that you have their logos plastered all over your car on all the gears of your drivers, and then it turns out that you finish worse on purpose in order to try to win at the end of the season, but the result is not guaranteed. So there's a lot of like really complex issues like that to manage, even though the ambiguities have already been found. So essentially what Gray Zone as a product is trying to deliver is to take into account all of those factors, all of those known ambiguities, which by the way, any team can find on their own using AI, because we did use AI ourselves to surface all of those ambiguities. And I can confirm with you right now, I'm not sure if this is gonna scare you or not, because our past session, Kenta Kawamoto-san, for example, just said so strongly that AI will actually like win, and AI will actually like come come for us, you know, it will actually replace like a lot of roles. I can also confirm with you on one thing that I know in my space, that AI now has reached the capability to read long, complicated regulatory text and find the actual ambiguities, at least in the world of motorsports, that engineers from race team can confirm to be true ambiguities. So that's not really what we selling at all. We trying to build this whole big like decision modeling platform that take into account all of the different factors that I just mentioned earlier, and try to give the team like the kind of like prediction, like the best like model scenario given all of the current states of the team on what they should actually do, whether or not they should exploit the ambiguities that they know in order for them to secure the podium at the end of the season.
Wow, that is
A lot more complicated than I've been selling to you guys earlier. Yeah.
that sounds very complicated. I couldn't imagine being a race car driver and actually having to put weights in my car. Like it's
Yeah,
like,
it's a little bit weird, right? Like why you as a winner who have like raced so fast and so hard, and you accumulate points, but you also accumulate something else that actually makes you go slower in the
yes,
next
yeah.
round. But if you think about it from like a fan engagement perspective, audience perspective, right? It's more fun to actually watch like a race like this, where you know the result, the winning result, the championship is not guaranteed purely because you like Toyota
Right, right.
and you just the richest or something, right? So it's cool. I think it's cool, but it does make what we're trying to solve at our company a lot harder to solve.
Sounds like it. Okay, Koji-san, this question is for you. Over 20 years at the front of the grid, have you ever had a moment where you could see that a team knew something everyone else knew but wasn't saying out loud?
Yes, absolutely. You can always feel the edge before you see it on the date. In the paddock, a winning team moves differently. 日本語であるレースで特定のチームのピットだけが異様に静かで、メカニックの目線や、車の佇まい、絶対的な確信が漂っているというような景色を目にすることがあります。レギュレーションの隙間を見つけ、それを完璧に使いこなせる確信があるとき、チームは静かです。騒ぎません。データに現れる前に、パドックの空気の密度が変わる感じです。他のチームに気づいていながらも、あえて口にしない、そんな静かな心理戦が常に起きております。
At a race, I've once seen how a certain team's pit is eerily calm, that the mechanic's eyes, how the car sits, seems to show an absolute certainty. When a team finds the the loopholes in in the regulation, and when they are certain that they can fully utilize it, that team will not celebrate. That when even before the data appears in the paddock, the atmosphere's thickness changes. All the other teams also notice, but they don't say a word. That sort of silent psychological battle is always the case.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And Koji, a follow-up question for you. When Maprang first told you about gray zone, I heard your first question wasn't about AI at all. What was it and why did you go there first?
Because code doesn't open paddock doors. Trust does. Motorsports is a closed world built on human relationship. どんなに優れた AI がグレーゾーンを導き出しても、チームを率いる人間がそのツールを信頼できなければ、何億円もするようなマシンの運命を託すことは絶対にしないと思います。モータースポーツは命がけの世界であり、長年培った人間関係とリスペクトがベースにあります。だから私はマプランにこの素晴らしい技術をどうやって彼らに信頼に変えて届けるんだいというようなことを最初に聞きました。
Even if a very splendid AI finds the gray zones, if the people in the team cannot trust that tool, they will never never let the fate of the machine that has hundreds of millions behind it to its machine, to this AI. Motorsports is a world of life and death. And at the core of it all is that there is a human relationship that has been generated over years and years, and the respect that comes from it. So I asked Mapran, so this is a splendid technology, but how are you going to change this into their trust? That was my first question.
So, Maprang, if you can maybe answer that question very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question?
Yeah, the one he just said. So, how do you translate, or get the trust, right, of the drivers? Yes. Yes. Yeah.
It's really hard. I have to admit, and I'm really aware
Can you-
that
can you
I'm
hear me?
entering the industry that actually
Yeah, I can hear.
could be potentially life-threatening. It's a
Unfortunately,
matter of
not
life and
cool.
death, right? It's sport for human
Sorry.
entertainment, but
It's
it
hard to hear
reminds me
you
a
with-
little bit of
with
like the
with what I can
gladiator
hear,
time,
and
you know?
Thank you for
It's
joining
the
our call.
gladiator type of sports with like
Okay.
human modernity and machines
I will
and
reflect
engines and
you
stuff.
to the main
So I'm
screen
really aware.
in 30, in
How do I
9
gain
minutes.
trust, right? Okay, like
Okay.
this event is definitely one example. That's the
Thanks so
reason
much for
why.
waiting.
Isn't it obvious,
No
you
problem.
guys? That's the reason why I invited all the very highly respected figures in motorsports, not only from motorsport Japanese brands, but also the global brands, well-trusted global brand like McLaren as well, right? So that's one thing. But another thing also is the credibility that I have from the past. I have to credentials, the credentials that I have from the past. I have to admit that actually I'm not someone from the world motorsport. So it's been really difficult for me trying to get access into this really close world. Like some of our speakers already mentioned, Koji-san mentioned that it's not the AI, it's not the code, it's not the technology that will actually break the doors in this world open. It's the trust, right? So the credentials that I have from my past life before I started my venture was I used to work in predictive maintenance algorithms for for an adjacent industry, I would say for aerospace. That was at Airbus in Toulouse in France. So it's a little bit of different things combined, being someone who knows enough about your own field, have some kind of humility as well to admit what you do, to admit what you don't know, what you still lack in order to gain access into this closed world, persistence, perseverance, relentlessness. People who work in motorsports are really relentless people, and they are the kind of people who spend so long, like long hours, spend a lot of effort just to gain a tenth of a second. And I believe I'm also that kind of person. So all of this combined, yeah, the past credentials in adjacent industry, persistent perseverance, a lot of personal investment actually in going all around the world to try to gain access into the paddocks, like in Mexico and the UK, for example. So those are all the factors combined that help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Koji-san, this is the last question for you. In your experience, do teams that win consistently win because they find edges no one else sees, or because they're better at deciding which edges are actually safe to use? Yeah.
The best teams are not just smart. They have a discrete line. Discrete. Finding the gap is easy. Knowing when to leave it alone is what makes a champion. 勝ち続けるチームは目先のコンマ数秒のグレーゾーンに飛びつくリスクと、スポンサー様だったり、メーカーさんとの関係、シリーズ全体の流れをすべて天秤にかけていると思います。引くべき時を知っている自制心と判断力、それこそが一流、二流、1位と2位とか、分けます。マプランのグレーゾーンがその判断の領域をサポートしようとしているのはまさに的を得ていると思います。
A team that keeps winning always keeps a balance between the risk of taking a split-second gray zone and the relationship with the sponsors, the makers, along with how the whole series is going on. So those who have the discipline and the ability to decide when to leave things alone is the difference between those who are the top notch and who are not. In that sense, Mapran's gray zone, which is trying to support the decision-making process of this thing, is precisely what is needed.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Koji. Appreciate your words there. And last but not least, Maprang, final question, answer. We only have about 5 minutes left. Where does Gray Zone go from here?
Well, I already revealed a little bit earlier, right, that we trying to go from being able to surface the ambiguities more structurally, make it faster and at scale, right? But that's not really what is going to provide the value to the race teams because they are already known. And so next is we're going to build the decision modeling platform. And I already alluded to earlier how complicated it actually is, but it's also a fun project to work on. We plan to also provide the same solution. It's not going to be exactly the same because the game mechanisms of each racing series is different. For example, Formula One and Super GT, we cannot really directly translate like one-to-one technology to work for both, right? So it's going to be a really fun project that we're going to work on all the different racing series in the world with that ambitious. So that is where we're going to go next. And the other part also that we would like to work on is definitely to provide another set of solution to the other stakeholder, the regulators. because yeah, we would love to actually help provide the kind of tool that will help the regulators write tighter tighter rules. And I understand, I know exactly what I'm just saying, what I just said, to write the tighter rules. By tighter rules, I don't really mean that they're gonna be able to close all the gaps. I don't believe so, because even though I'm an AI founder, I'm also team human. I believe in human ingenuity, especially in the world of motorsports, that when the rules get tighter, there will also be, the humans will also be able to find even more loopholes. And as someone who works at the edge of innovation, I believe you may not agree with me on this, and I'm happy to hear more about your opinions in the networking session. I believe that by actually helping the regulators writing tighter rules, we'll actually see even more innovation coming out of the best and the brightest mind in the world of engineering. Because us engineers, especially engineers in motorsports, we just love being squeezed.
Yeah, constraints definitely help innovation for sure. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this session. Give them a round of applause, everyone. Thank you so much.